Well, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Lior Samfiru, and you are here live in my live Q&A session dealing with employment law. This is the right place to get those legal issues resolved, to get information. So thank you very much. Welcome. I am glad you're here for this session. Again, my name is Lior Samfiru. I'm one of the founders of Samfiru Tumarkin LLP. We're the largest employee side law firm in this country. You can find us in Ontario, in BC, and in Alberta. And once a week, I myself am here to talk to you about employment law, but more specifically, to answer your questions about employment law. So maybe you have a bad boss and you want to know what to do about it. Maybe you're thinking your employer is doing something that's not legal. What can you do about it? How do you stop it? What are your rights? Ask the question right now. I'll tell you. There's answers, there's solutions. We have some of the best employment laws in the world here in Canada, and I'm here to tell you what they are. People that often think, we don't have good laws, it's because they actually don't know what the law is. Well, I know what the law is. I can tell you what the law is. Whether you're looking at a severance package, you lost your job, you're worried about losing your job is being changed, your compensation is being reduced. Spoke with a lot of people recently where that's what's happening to them. Well, why don't you start by asking the question, can this happen? I'll tell you, and of course, you can take that information and use it. And beyond this session, right now I'm live, but beyond this session, if you want to connect with me and my team, I'm going to tell you how to do that. Very, very easy to do. You just go to employmentlawyer.ca. You see that address on the screen right now, employmentlawyer.ca. What can you do there? Well, first thing you can do is read a lot about more about employment law. We have all kinds of articles and tools there for you. Beyond that, you can also connect with me and my team. Phone numbers are there. Email addresses are there. If you'd rather just fill out a form and hit submit, that's there as well. Employmentlawyer.ca, your one-stop tool, one-stop shop for anything employment law. But right now, I'm live. Questions are coming in. Ask your question. It's great to watch and great to learn, but isn't it better if you actually have your specific question answered? There's a box on your screen. You type in the question, you hit submit, and I'll see it, I'll read it, I'll answer it, and you can turn off your computer later having the answers to your legal question. So again, I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer with Samfiru Tumarkin LLP, but I'm going to start doing now what I came here to do, which is to answer questions. In the meantime, hey, ask yours. All right, Carter, first question through YouTube says, what is the requirement for an employer to hold their employees' jobs when on sick leave? Is it different for small businesses? Great question. So an employer is allowed to run its business. And what I mean by that is if you have a job and your employer needs someone to do the job while you're off, well, they can replace you. They can hire someone to do the job because the job needs to be done. Now, what does that mean? That means that when you're ready to come back to work, your employer has to make efforts to bring you back. That doesn't mean they have to fire the person that replaced you, but they need to see, is there a job available, a similar job, if not the old job? Can we bring him back? Is there any way to bring this person back? If the answer is yes, we can find a way. They have to do it. If they look, they tried, and there's just nothing now available, then and only then can they let you go with your full severance. What they cannot do is they cannot avoid going through that analysis. They cannot refuse to try to find you a job. They can't just jump straight to a termination. That would be illegal. That would be a human rights violation in most cases. But they don't also have to fire the person that's replaced you. Now, that's very different than a maternity leave situation. In a maternity leave situation, they may have to fire the replacement, okay? Because you have the absolute right to have your job back. Not necessarily the same with a disability leave, but you still have a right for your employer to make all efforts to bring you back. If you're speaking to your employer and they're not trying to bring you back, they're not cooperating, they don't want to even go there, call me. Okay, I can either get you compensation and damages, or I can get them to bring you back because they're not going to like to hear from me. So that's the answer there, Carter. Very good question. Thank you for that. See, by the way, how easy it is? Carter had a question. He asked the question. He got his answer. And I think he hopefully knows a lot more than he did before. You can do the same thing. If you're dealing with an employment law issue, ask it right now. I'm here live for you. I like doing this, but I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you. So I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer, continuing now to answer questions about employment law. All right, question. Next one comes to us from Marius, who is on Facebook. says, the company I work for was sold. The new company has offered me a job, but the rate of pay is much lower. Am I entitled to any severance if I decline? So the answer generally is yes. If the job that you're being offered by the buyer is vastly different in terms of responsibility, in terms of pay, in terms of location, if you refuse it, you're still out of a job with the seller because they sold the business. That means you're entitled to your full severance, and that could be as much as 24 months' pay. Now, if there's no good reason to refuse, the pay is the same, the job's the same, everything is the same, I just don't want to work there, well, you still would get severance, but a lot less, not your full severance. So in this situation, Marius, yes, if it's a significant pay cut, usually more than 15% or so, yes, that would be something you can say no to. But before you do that, okay, best advice, before you say no, that's it, I'm gone, let's talk off air. Connect with me, let's do this right, let's do this by the book to make sure we're not missing anything. And you, Marius, and anyone else, you can connect with me easily through employmentlawyer.ca. Again, you see that address? Good timing on the screen right below me, employmentlawyer.ca. Thank you for that question. Very important question. A lot of people are wondering the same thing. All right, let's see. Continuing questions here, guys. Hey, don't just watch. I'm telling you, don't just watch. Ask your question right now. You got me here, okay? You got one of the top employment lawyers in this country here with you, for you, just wanting to answer your questions. Again, Lior Samfiru, that's me, the employment lawyer, answering your questions. Exactly. Chanel on Facebook comes to us next, and she says, I think I need to resign from my job. My employer has stopped giving me accommodations for my disability. Is there anything I can do? So an employer has an obligation to provide accommodation. If you have a disability, you need some accommodation, let's say modified duties or modified hours, your employer has to accommodate that as long as you have a doctor's note, okay? So if you say, I need accommodation, that's probably not enough. If you have a doctor's note saying you need accommodation, they have to do it if at all possible. If your employer refuses to do that, that's a human rights violation. That can also be a constructive dismissal. So Chanel, yes, you're asking what can you do about it? Well, here's the thing. If you just want them to accommodate you and you want to continue working, if that's your main goal, a letter from me does that. I can promise you, as soon as I write to them and say, you better accommodate, see how fast they accommodate you, okay? So that's option one. Option two is if you say, nah, forget about these guys. I can't believe they treated me this way. I just want to be gone with compensation. We can get that as well. But before you quit, you call me. You don't quit and then call me. You call me before you quit. I'll talk to you. We'll do this right. We'll get you the compensation, or we'll get them to accommodate you, whichever you prefer. Okay, so for you, Chanel, easy to do. employmentlawyer.ca. That's how you connect with me. Phone numbers there again. Email address is there. Forms are there. All the ways to kind of fax is there. Not that you use a fax these days, but you get the idea. It's all there. employmentlawyer.ca. For those that are just joining us now, hey, welcome. I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer, answering questions about your job, your workplace rights, what your boss is doing or isn't doing, what's legal, what's not legal. Ask your question right now. All right, next question. Great name, Guy Dope. That's a dope name. Guy asks, I am on a leave of absence and my short-term disability claim is not supported for the moment. The reason for it from the insurance company is since I asked for a little more time to coordinate schedule with the care provider to fill out the form. So I'm not compliant since I asked for a little more time to coordinate. Okay. So bottom line is there are rules you have to follow, but they also have to be reasonable, the insurance company. So again, the answer here is let us get involved. Usually once they hear from us, we have a whole team, by the way, Guy, from dealing exclusively with disability insurance, a whole team. They're damn good, pardon my language. So if you want help with this and you need help because you need to get these benefits, usually once they hear from us, they'll back off and say, okay, fine, we'll be reasonable, we'll work with you. So let us do what we do, connect with myself, I'll connect you with my team, employmentlawyer.ca, the way to do that. But you want to do this because there's also going to be long-term disability. You don't want to compromise that. So, Guy, you need to connect with me again, employmentlawyer.ca. Thanks for that important question, and don't sit on that. All right, let's see here. Guys, terrific questions. As always, Sammy has the next one. He's on YouTube. Can an employer claim they're not liable for dangerous temperatures in the workplace if it causes health problems for employees? Is this legal? Well, no, an employer has to keep the workplace safe. Now, yes, an employer is not creating the heat out there, but an employer is also required not to have employees working if the heat is so bad that the work is dangerous. So if they allow you to continue working and you get injured, yeah, they could be liable and could be a workplace injury, etc. What you can do here is what we call a work refusal. Very common. So you can say, I'm refusing to work because of my health and safety. In that situation, if the company still doesn't agree with you, they're required by law to call in an inspector from the Ministry of Labor, from the government, to come in and determine whether the work is safe or not. And if it's not safe, then they're going to be prevented from working. So that's what you can do. And by the way, you cannot in any way be punished for engaging in this work refusal. Okay, you cannot. No way. It's completely illegal to say, oh, you refuse to work, so we're going to punish you. We're going to suspend you. We're going to let you go. Illegal. You simply tell your employer, I'm not going to continue working because I don't believe the work is safe because of heat or whatever the reason is. They have to call that inspector, and if the inspector agrees with you, the work is stopped until the situation is fixed. If the inspector doesn't agree, then the work can continue. All right, so that's what you do. It's called a work refusal, completely legal, and you cannot be punished for that. So very important questions. See how easy it is? You know, here's what the law does. The law gives you the right to do something. The law says you can't be punished for exercising that right. And that's by the way, something very important. A lot of the rights that you have come with a second right, and that is the right not to be punished for pursuing those rights. So it's okay to say, it's one thing to say I have a right, but that right is not valuable if you can be punished for pursuing it, right? Well, the laws understand that. The laws say, well, not only do you have a legal right, overtime, vacation pay, workplace safety, you also can't be punished for pursuing those rights, for demanding those rights. So you should always feel free and empowered to pursue your legal rights. The law protects you. You cannot be punished. An employer that tries to punish you for standing up for your legal rights is going to have some significant problems. Let's put it that way. For those joining us, again, my name is Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer. I'm here with you live. You still have time to ask your questions and for me to answer them. And this happened last week as well. As soon as I said goodbye, there were 2 or 3 questions that came in. Don't do that, right? Don't wait till the end. I'm going to turn off the camera at the end of the session here at in about 17 minutes or so. And if you ask questions, then I'm not going to see them. So ask your question now. You have time. I can be relaxed. You can be relaxed. So let's do that. All right. Next question to us today comes on YouTube from Jill. Can my employer require me to retire? I'm 66 and was planning to keep working for a few years, but they have been pushing me to give them a retirement date. You know, I've been getting this question fairly often. We have, in many areas, an aging workforce. So let's be very clear here. Your employer absolutely cannot require you to retire, cannot demand that you give them a retirement date. In fact, even asking you about that is inappropriate. Okay, your employer should not be asking you about that, should not be suggesting that you should be retiring, certainly should not be demanding that you tell them when. Or if they want you to tell them when, tell them in 15 years. I'll let you know if that changes. That'll shut them up, right? There's no such thing as mandatory retirement. We got rid of that many years ago, almost 20 years ago, maybe 18 years ago now. So no, you cannot be punished in any way for wanting to work, for not retiring. Your employer can't force you to retire. And if they try to let you go because of your age, that's age discrimination. So honestly, best answer if you say, tell me when you plan on retiring, tell them 15 years, tell them 20 years, tell them 30 years. Okay, that'll get them off your back. Any problems, you call me. Okay, I take those things very seriously. Age discrimination, which is exactly what you've described, is completely illegal. All right, so thank you for that question, Jill. A very important one. Hopefully you know what to do. But again, any problems, reach me through employmentlawyer.ca. All right, continuing to answer questions. Teresa on Facebook. If a business closes down, are employees still entitled to severance if they still have open and operating locations in other provinces. You're owed severance even if they don't have operating locations in other provinces. But certainly if they do. Bottom line, if you lose your job, you're owed severance, full stop. The only time you may not get it is if the company is formally in bankruptcy proceedings. The fact that they decided that, you know what, we're not making enough money, we're going to shut it down, does not mean they're in bankruptcy, and they absolutely still have to pay your full severance, even if it means selling property or selling the accounts receivable or equipment. They have to pay severance. So I wouldn't take no for an answer here. You call me and you see how fast you get that severance. Okay, yes, you're absolutely owed severance. Call me, employmentlawyer.ca. All right, great question. I love that question. Don't let your employer get away with not paying you severance. Reggie MacArthur has our next question on YouTube. Reggie says, if I accept a new position with my employer, but it doesn't work out, what are my rights? Would I be considered as in a probationary period under a new position with the same employer? No, you're not going to be considered in the probationary period. If you take on a new position and the company lets you go, they're allowed to, but they have to pay you severance. And the severance includes all your time with the company. So if a company says, yeah, we don't like you in this role and there's no other job for you, so we're going to let you go, they can do that. The company can let you go pretty much for any reason, but again, they have to pay you severance. It's not, your seniority doesn't start again, Reggie, just because you took on a new job. But the flip side of that is this. Let's say you take on a new role and you hate it. It doesn't work for you. You don't necessarily have a right to go back to your old role, which means if you really hate this role, you have two options. Either you continue doing it anyway, or you quit, right? So always be very careful with that. One of the things you may want to negotiate with the company before you take on a new role to say, I'm going to have a period to try it on for a few weeks or a few months. And if I don't like it, I can go back to my old job. That'll be a nice thing to be able to negotiate. But if you lose your job, you're owed your full severance. Hopefully that makes sense, Reggie. Let me know if it doesn't, and feel free to ask a follow-up question if you haven't. Now, I've mentioned severance in my answer to Reggie. I've mentioned severance several times already on this session. So there's something else I need to tell you. I talk about this every week, but it's so important. You need to know how much severance you're owed. I've said to you several times, you're owed severance, you're owed your full severance. But how much severance is that? Do you get a month? Do you get 18 months? Do you get something else? How do you know? How do you find out? Very, very easy to do. You grab your smartphone, you grab your tablet, your desktop, whatever device you want to use, and you go to pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. Again, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. You see that address on the screen right now. Why do you go there? Well, you go there because our very well-received severance calculator is there. It's been used by over almost 2.5 million people so far. Pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. Our severance calculator tool is there, and it allows you to find out in seconds how much severance you are owed. You answer some questions, how old you are, how long you've worked for the company, the type of job that you have, and it's going to take that process at all and tell you 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, whatever the right amount is. By the way, completely free. Completely free. No credit card information, completely anonymous. No names, no phone numbers, no email addresses, completely free and anonymous. So make use of it. Use it. Whether you've just lost your job or you're worried about losing your job or you're just curious, check it out. I almost guarantee you that you'll be surprised just by how much severance you are owed. It's not a week per year. It's not 2 weeks per year. It's a lot more for almost everyone. So again, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca, severance calculator, always the first place you go to when you want to know how much severance you're owed. All right. Thank you, and continuing to answer questions. Right now, you still have some time. You still have about 10 minutes. Ask your question. That's plenty of time, right? Ask your question right now. Let's say Ace has a question on YouTube. I resigned from my position, but I believe it was a constructive dismissal. The employer wanted me to do an entirely different job. I was with the company for 14 years. Would I still be entitled to severance? So yeah, I mean, if the company gave you a very different job, again, I want to know why it was different. How was it different? Was it a lower level job? Was it less pay? Was it different hours? But if it was definitely different, then yeah, of course, that's a constructive dismissal. A constructive dismissal happens when an employer makes significant, big changes to the terms of your employment, to either your hours or your responsibilities or your pay or your work location. And when that happens, you can consider that to be a termination, and you can leave and still get your severance. So if you left ACE because of this, yeah, you're owed your full severance, but I want to see how different it is. I'll give you an example. If they said you're a machine operator, but instead of operating machine number 1, you're going to operate now machine number 2, that may not be enough to be a constructive dismissal. But on the other hand, they said instead of a machine operator, you're now going to be the window cleaner. Well, you better believe that that's going to be a significant change, and that could be a constructive dismissal. You get the idea. That's why you want to connect with me so we can talk specifics, but absolutely could be a constructive dismissal. Thanks for that question, Ace. Continuing to answer more. By the way, before I even do that, those that have just joined us, welcome. My name is Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer. For the past 21 minutes, I've been answering questions live here with respect to employment law, workplace rights, severance, wrongful dismissal, constructive dismissal. I'm still here for some time longer. If you're just joining us, ask your question as well. If you want to know something about your legal rights in the workplace, you come to the right place. Again, I'm Lior Samfiru with Samfiru Tumarkin LLP, answering questions, just like I'm about to do right now with Terry. Terry says, my employer has asked me to resign from my position. They've said I need to do so by the end of the week because they feel I do not have the right experience. Can they force me to leave my job? Absolutely not. Nonsense. You cannot be told to resign. If the company doesn't want you there because they don't think you're doing a good job, they're allowed to let you go, but they're going to have to pay you severance. What they're trying to do is by you resigning and say, oh, you resigned, so we don't have to pay you severance. Why would you ever do that? No. The answer is going to be very simple. No, I'm not resigning. I'm going to continue doing my best as always. If you don't want me here, I can't stop you, but I'm not resigning. No, there's no such thing. You should never resign because someone told you. There's no such thing as I expect your resignations. I demand your resignation. By definition, a resignation is something that you do on your own voluntarily. If someone tells you you have to, the answer is no, because it's not a resignation. So you continue working until and unless they say stop working. And then they pay you severance. And by the way, the other thing is this. If you resign, not only don't you get severance, you also don't get EI. You've paid into EI all this time, but you're not going to get it because you resigned. On the other hand, if the company decides to let you go, you get severance. That could be as much as 2 years' pay. And you get EI, which can be as much as a year's pay. So why would you ever resign? Absolutely not. Hopefully that makes sense, Terry. Any follow-up questions, ask or connect with me through employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. All right, let's see. Next question comes to us from, I've already answered that. Parker has a comment here. This law firm is amazing, highly recommended by me. Well, thank you, Parker. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. And, I tell you, we try hard to do our best to help all our clients. So if you have a legal issue, by all means, come talk to me. Now, one of the things that always, take a step back. I've been doing a lot of media for the past 10, 11 years, right? I've been doing a lot of TV, radio here. And the genesis for that was there were so many misconceptions I was hearing about severance, okay? So many misconceptions. People believe that it was a week per year, 2 weeks per year. You don't get it. You do get it. It was nuts, absolutely nuts. And people were completely confused, and people were accepting horrible severance offers every day because they got all this misinformation. So I said, enough is enough. I got on radio many years ago and I started talking and telling people how much severance they're owed, what the real truth is. And I still do that to this day. Severance is a very important obligation that your employer has. It could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases, okay? Sometimes even more. So you need to understand what you're owed. That's why you listen to me here. That's why you listen to me on TV and radio. That's why you use our severance calculator at pocketemploymentlawyer.ca, because you don't want to walk away from your rights. Don't go to Google and try to get advice from some anonymous person or website. That's wrong. That's false. There's a lot of misconceptions out there. So do the right thing, do the smart thing when it comes to your severance. All right, continue to answer questions. I still have time for a couple more questions, guys, so you got some time. Ask them. Helen has our next question. I believe Helen's joining us through YouTube. How do I demonstrate I am seeking a job after a wrongful dismissal? Only 2 companies can use my expertise. How to prepare to argue in court? Well, take a step back. If you're trying to argue something in court on your own, you're going to have a big problem, okay? You just like if you're going to try to do surgery on your own, you're going to have a big problem, okay? So you need to have a lawyer. And if you have a lawyer, then they can tell you exactly how to show that, and they can tell you what you need to do. But the reality also is that if a lawyer does his or her job, you're not going to have to go to court at all. We can resolve it quickly on good terms. So the fact that you're asking that question, Helen, tells me, and maybe I'm wrong, is that you're trying to do this on your own. Don't, okay? Don't. Call me, call my team. We have a whole team in Ontario, in BC, in Alberta. We got your back, okay? So don't try to figure this out on your own. You're at a disadvantage because the company's going to have a lawyer who knows a heck of a lot more about the law and the process than you do, just like a surgeon would know more about surgery than you do. So do the right thing, Helen. Contact me through employmentlawyer.ca. All right, I'll take one more question here, and that's on YouTube from Miss Keisha. There you go. Sorry. My doctor presented a note stating I could no longer work on a night shift, and my employer stated they are not acknowledging the note and requested certification of my limitations. My question is this. Is this something they can do, although my doctor has given notice in his medical opinion? No. If your doctor's note is clear, that's all there is. If your doctor's note is confusing, if it's not clear, they can ask for clarification. But if your doctor's note saying for medical reasons, you cannot work a night shift, done. There's nothing else for them to ask. Now, maybe they can ask how long this is going to last. Do we know? Is there a limit? Is there something else that we can do to accommodate her? They can ask those questions. Those are legitimate questions. But beyond that, they have to provide that accommodation. And if they say that's not good enough, well, wait a second, it is. And by refusing to accept that and by refusing to accommodate, that could be a human rights violation. It could be a constructive dismissal. You name it, it's illegal. Okay, a doctor's note is your most powerful tool. Okay, that's what your doctor's note is. If your doctor's note says you need to be off work, you can be off work. If your doctor's note says you need accommodation, you can get accommodation. And that's it. If they can ask for clarification, but not something different. They also can't force you to see another doctor or to get a second opinion. Nonsense. So, Ms. Keisha, in this case, if they're not going to accommodate you, call me. See how fast things change once they hear from me. All right? So to connect with me, easy, employmentlawyer.ca. You see that on the screen right now, employmentlawyer.ca. All right. This felt like it went by really quickly. Sorry, Helen had a follow-up. Are lawyers willing to deal with a powerful company? Helen, what do you think? We have 50 lawyers across the country. Who do you think we deal with, right? So do the right thing. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining us right now. Thank you very much for joining me tomorrow, by the way, on the 27th of July at 12 p.m. Eastern. My colleague, Alex Lucifero, will be here to talk about employment law and disability law. Watch out for him and join him. I'll be back here as well next week, but don't wait until then. If you have a question, a problem, an issue, you want to connect, you need some help, just go to employmentlawyer.ca. That's the right thing. That's a smart thing. Don't sit on your rights. Don't take your time. Sometimes you can lose your rights by taking your time. Guys, I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer with Samfiru, Tumarkin, LLP. It was a real pleasure to be here. Fantastic questions as always. I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you.